Good afternoon. Time now for the news today. I'm MFA Akosia Adeti. Coming up this afternoon, FDA reports confirms toxic heavy metals in food and cosmetics as government silence on EPA and Pure Earth findings sparks public outcry.
They were in opposition. They were lining up to say declare a state of emergency, declare a state of emergency. Sam George told us that if the political will was there, illegal mining could be dealt with in 4 days.
We have details as a new Food and Drugs Authority's national summary report confirms lead, mercury found in turmeric, cereal mixes and others as well. ECG to remove unauthorized meters says devices not procured through its system fail to capture electricity consumption accurately.
ECG cannot read the meters. The meters are not measuring, so we cannot read the consumption.
Also, don't rush back to Eurobond market. Fix the economy first. World Bank tells Ghana, warning that such a move could drag the country back into IMF bailout cycle. With details, as Ghana has spent 40 of its 68 years of independence under IMF programs. And later in the bulletin, Clean Air Fund presses the government to roll out a consolidated national clean air policy to set clear targets and tighten enforcement in the fight against dirty air.
The reason for that call is because having a singular document or policy helps you to put targets in there, and the targets would then have timelines.
We're live on DSTV, channel 421, GoTV, channel 125, and around the world on myjoyonline.com. Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. Please stay. Thank you for your company this afternoon. First, the government is facing mounting criticisms from civil society groups for its silence on a recent EPA and Pure Earth report that sent shockwaves across Ghana. That year-long Mercury and other heavy metals impact assessments carried out between August 2024 and September 2025 across 6 regions, including Ashanti, Central, and Savannah, revealed dangerously high levels of mercury, arsenic, and lead in food, water, soil, air, crops, and fish in small-scale gold mining communities. Now, the report confirmed widespread contamination with several hotspots far exceeding both national and international safety limits, raising urgent public health concerns. Now, on phone, speaking to Joy News, Eco-Conscious Director Awula Sewa described the government's silence as evidence that illegal mining, what she calls environmental terrorism, has overwhelmed the authorities. She joins us on phone for us to even get more into this. Thank you for joining us, Awula, this afternoon. I know that you have been very, very vocal about the fight against illegal mining. Once again, let's hear you. How worrying is it for you, especially being heavily involved in the fight against illegal mining, that the government has stayed quite silent on such a report?
You see, it's extremely worrying. It's extremely worrying. It's extremely worrying, but you see, the writing has been on the wall. We've known for a long time that illegal mining was causing ecocides. We have known that the waters were being poisoned. We have known for a long time that it was going to enter the food chain. So what has been said is not at all surprising. The writing was on the wall. There's a health emergency, and it is for this reason that we have been asking for a state of emergency. And interestingly enough, even when they were in opposition, the current administration, some of the stalwarts were also asking for a state of emergency. So the situation is dire. It's been dire for a while. So for us, it's not a surprise.
Well, the ministry, especially the Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, has said that we've made some progress, actually indicating the number of arrests and prosecutions under this current government. They've also indicated that they're going to be earmarking some illegal mining zones as national security zones. All this coming together, they think it's quite enough to fight the menace. You do not agree?
You see, when we were in opposition, we knew about the urgency of the matter, and that's why we're asking for a state of emergency. So it's astonishing that we are in September, and we are now going to do this, we are now going to do that. The matter is urgent. E-levy wasn't causing an existential threat, but we managed to revoke it. The betting tax wasn't causing an existential threat, but we managed to get rid of it. What is affecting the health of Ghanaians? What is causing an increase in kidney disease, neurological disease? What is killing Ghanaians does not seem to concern us as much as e-levy and betting tax. We are in the 9th month. In January, we should have dealt with declaring the state of emergency.
Right.
If we're going to declare certain zones, security zones, and put boots on the ground to ensure that the illegal miners and their equipment are removed from the water bodies and the forest reserves, then that will be a step in the right direction. But
Right.
it's not a time to be making more and more announcements. It shouldn't have taken us 9 months to get to this stage. The situation is dire. I liken it to a house on fire. The house is on fire. We're still using buckets of water, and then we are saying that, yes, we are soon going to call the fire service. When are you going to call the fire service?
Question
when the
to
house
ask.
is completely burned, and you're going for a recovery exercise to get the dead bodies.
Well, thank you for once again adding your voice to the call this afternoon on the news. Now, still on illegal mining. Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Yusuf Sulemana, has revealed that more than 1,400 illegal miners arrested in recent crackdowns remain unprosecuted due to the lack of proper system to track and bring suspects to court. Speaking on Newsnight, Mr. Sulemana admitted that while many suspects were handed over to immigration and security agencies, most have slipped through the cracks, raising serious doubts about the effectiveness of the government's fight against illegal mining.
I think it's one of our challenges. Over 1,000 people have been arrested, but the process of taking them through the court system has been very, very slow. And so we also holding meetings with the Attorney General to ensure that there's some speed with the process of getting them go through the legal process.
That then brings in the point of a state of emergency, which a lot of civil society organizations, which Senor Hosi, who is also on the line, have been calling for.
Is it a suggestion that if we don't put in place a state of emergency, we cannot set up a court system that can fast track the process? Is that a suggestion?
That's not the suggestion, but the suggestion from the CESOs is that under state of emergency, everything, including arrests and prosecutions, are very quick.
Yes, even before you do that, some discussions should have taken place. And so, at this moment, those who have arrested will not be able to even prosecute them. And let's, put in place a system that can ensure a expedient processing of these people, and then we take it to the next stage.
Meanwhile, a separate national summary report by the Food and Drugs Authority has also found high levels of heavy metals in some food and cosmetic products on the Ghanaian market. Deputy Chief Executive of the Food Division at the FDA, Roderick Kwabena-Dade, joins us this afternoon. We want to find out exactly what are some of the total findings in this report, beyond what I've just told our audience. We'll try and correct that audio and try to hear from the Deputy Chief in charge of Food Division, the FDA, to understand how this separate report by them, and just to also draw your attention to the fact that this report is very separate from that one that was conducted by Pure Earth and EPA, but still focuses on food, except that the FDA goes on to add some particular foods and as well cosmetics, which you probably are using on the market. I'll try again to see if I have him. If you can hear me, well, okay, we'll try and reconnect with him and see if we can get some answers about this report. But This is News Today. Away from that, Ghana's fight against dirty air is being suffocated by scattered laws and weak enforcement, the Clean Air Fund has warned. At a clean air event in Accra, the fund's Ghana lead, Desmond Apia, made a strong appeal for a consolidated national clean air policy, one clear framework with bold targets to replace the maze of uncoordinated rules spread across multiple agencies. Without such policy, he cautioned the country risk losing its battle against one of the greatest threats of public health.
I think we join our voice to the call for a consolidated national clean air policy. The reason for that call is because having a singular document or policy helps you to put targets in there. And the targets would then have timelines. Because what we have in Ghana is that there are so many documents or policies mentioning air quality or aiming to address air quality issues, but without the specific timelines and the targets that we want to achieve, by which percentage reduction, by which date, and by who. I think that it makes it a lot more difficult. But if you go and you have a singular policy which has consolidated all these bits and pieces, we can then use that as a guide to our aspiration as a people, where we want to be in the next 10 years. And then how do we break it into chunks to say by 2030 we want to get to this point, by 2040 this is where we want to get to, how many lives do we intend to save and all that. So I think that is extremely important.
Now, the government has acknowledged the concerns, while the Environmental Protection Authority says it remains split over the debate, but insists the bigger challenge lies in enforcement. Selina Amwa is the head of air quality at the EPA.
Let me add that we don't have the air quality policy specifically for air quality management. There's been a lot of discussion. Some are of the opinion that we need to have a separate policy for air quality. And others think that with all that I have mentioned, if they are embedded in other policies, must we get another policy? Because the policies are there, the issue is implementation and then enforcement. So that discussion is also ongoing.
The story was a collaboration with New Narratives. Funding was provided by the Clean Air Fund, which had no say in the story's contents. You're watching News Today, and meanwhile, a separate national summary report by the Food and Drugs Authority has also found high levels of heavy metals in some food and cosmetic products on the Ghanaian market. Deputy Chief Executive of the Food Division at the FDA, Roderick Kwabena-Dadie-Ejay, joins us. Thank you for joining us on the News Today. So, what are some of the key findings of this report?
Yes, thank you very much. To our dismay, we found out that turmeric is a product people who want to lose weight are falling down on. So we use that as an indicator, and then what do you call it? Tested those products to see what was going on, as well as also kohl, a cosmetic that ladies, guys may want to use under their eyes. This was a work we did with UNICEF, and then also Winnie-Mix, complementary food for babies. Normally when you wean them, they want to give this Tom Brown product, sometimes mixed with maybe groundnut, some legume of a sort. So that too was one of the products that we looked at. So then Shri, Ayilor,
right.
that also pregnant women, sometimes have a craving for. We're very much interested in things very important for children as well as women. And so just looking at this nationwide in the 16 regions, to our dismay, the levels of heavy metal. Heavy metals, we are talking about lead, we are talking about cadmium, and they were very high. We didn't get mercury in any of them.
Okay.
But so you can imagine that in the process of digging deep into the earth, we come across one who bring out a lot of soil that may have a lot of these contaminants of food. Washing them into water bodies would serve as irrigating the plants nearby with these things. And so you realize that it's kind of widespread and nobody really escapes it. We need to rethink the way we do our things because food safety is everybody's business.
That's quite worrying, but at least some duty lies with you, FDA. What are some of the measures you're putting in place to curb this, at least? Is there a way you can recall some products, or it's just quite uncontrollable?
As it is, FDA, from time back, when we saw some of these signs on the walls, took some precautions. So, for example, in the area of sachet water and bottled water, we ensure that products that are brought for registration, they don't have heavy metal in them, as well as, let's say, cocoa products, because people use cocoa in many products out there. And so that also is one step that we have taken to be sure that heavy metals are not in them. But of course, you don't know what people will put out there. A manufacturer, remember, you are not always with him or her. So you also have to pick from the market to be tested. Now, when it becomes so widespread and erratic, it's kind of difficult to scientifically make meaningful statistical pickings around. Right. And so we are cautioning all Ghanaians that we need to change our ways. We need to look for better ways of handling some of these things. So, for example, in the case of Shre or the Ayilor, as women may use, FDA and UNICEF are advising that as much as possible, mothers or pregnant people should resist taking such items. Because
even before, really sorry to cut in, you're making a very important point, but even before we found heavy metals in such foods, you already warned pregnant women to stay away from such things, Shre, Ayilor, for the people watching us. But for cereals, Tom Brown, turmeric, I desperately want to lose weight. I definitely will use turmeric. How careful can I be?
No, and you hit the nail on the head, and that's why we say food safety is everybody's business. And because you can't say you will not eat maize, and here you could be getting maize from a place that has been irrigated with such water. You will not know.
Okay.
So all of us, people in the FDA, people in, it doesn't matter, in Joy FM, we are all prone to this. It is changing our ways that we need to look at. Right. Really, what is happening to us is something that I think we all really need to think our ways and reset our ways and change the way we do things.
Right.
It is everybody's business.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on the news today. Well, away from that worrying situation, the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, says it is removing meters that were not procured through its system, insisting such devices fail to capture consumption accurately. The disclosure comes as Parliament's Energy Committee, during a monitoring visit to ECG, had renewed concerns about threats facing the energy and water sectors.
Of the meters we find in our network that have not come to us, they don't measure anything. They are not good meters. So when you put it there, they're there. But ECG cannot read the meters. The meters are not measuring, so we cannot read the consumption, so we cannot put it there. So we have two issues. The first one, we don't have you in our records, so we cannot do it. The second one is that we cannot even measure the power you are consuming. And unfortunately, most of the facilitators are our friends in Parliament and assemblymen and DCs, and so we are indulging your support so we can curb the issue of illegal meters. Publication that some of my friends in the Kaji South District, Kaji South municipality want to demonstrate against us because we are removing illegal meters. It is important for us to remove those meters and replace them with legal meters issued by ECG. Otherwise, our losses will continue to grow.
The acting managing director, engineer Julius Pekpena, also revealed that ECG collected a record of 1.74 billion in July 2025. He further assured customers that the tariff increment the company is requesting may not necessarily lead to higher bills.
This year, July, we had our highest ever revenue of ECG collection, 1.74 billion Ghanaian. It's a record, and we want to celebrate that. We want to celebrate that. Mr. Chairman, we have also implemented a number of initiatives to improve our internal processes. We want to reduce the frustrations applicants face in getting power supply or in getting meters.
James Aveji, my colleague, is on the tour with Parliamentary Committee and joins us via Zoom. James, let's start with ECG's demand to the PURC. What more justification have they been given?
Well, so you heard in there, he mentioned that there will be a presentation on that. And from that presentation, the company said, in fact, if you look at the figures they are charging now as distribution service charge, it is just about 11% of the end user tariff, the bill you and I pay at the end of the month. But the laws allow them to charge as much as 30 to 33% of our, bills. And so even if the PURC approves the entire over 200% increment that they are demanding, that will not get into the region of the 30%. And so that is the justification they are making. Then the MD also, said that the current request, if approved, if implemented, may not mean that you and I will be paying more bills at the end of the month. I don't know how that calculations could be done. I'm sure Kofi and the rest would help us understand that more a bit further later. But that is what he's been saying, surprisingly, that if the 225% is approved, you and I may not end up paying more at the end of the month. Other issues that he's been addressing also include the missing container issue. He is saying officially that they've been able to trace and retrieve over 1,000 of the missing containers, and they are all currently in their safe house as they work on disconnecting those meters that did not go through the system, especially those that have been imported without their consent. And so those are the few things he's been updating us on. The committee has also been responding to it. The committee is still maintaining its stance that, as far as they are concerned, the trajectory of increased revenue is applaudable, but they want them to be consistent in that. As at when the committee feels that they have done enough to close the gap as far as losses are concerned and they are generating enough revenue, then they will okay any form of tariff increment that the PURC may bring to the committee as part of the approval process. The interaction is still ongoing. After this, they'll be meeting the Volta River Authority also to hear what their balance sheet is looking like. MFR.
Well, thank you so much, James. And until Kofi comes to put the numbers together, I won't rejoice about the bills yet. Away from that, the World Bank has warned the Mahama administration not to make a hasty return to the Eurobond market, cautioning that such a move would be seen by international investors as the easy way out instead. The bank says the government should focus on fiscal discipline, debt sustainability, and politically tough reforms to restore credibility. It also warned that without these steps, Ghana risks repeating its long history of economic crisis and IMF bailouts. This confirms JoyNews' research advisory note earlier this year, cautioning the government of an early return to the capital market during positive credit upgrades earlier this year. Now, let's take a look at the highlights of that recommendation by the World Bank. Says that, importantly, the new administration should also refrain from a hasty return to the Eurobond market, which would be interpreted by international investors as taking the easy way out. It continues to also say that, we'll bring you the continuation of that one. It continues to say that instead the government should focus on strengthening the country's fiscal and growth fundamentals and on convincing the private sector, both in the real and financial sectors, that public debt is on a sustainable path as well. And finally, adherence to the medium-term debt management strategy, MTDS, and full transparency of the annual borrowing plan are essential. These are some of the recommendations. It says that the most pressing priority is to establish enduring credibility by maintaining the momentum of fiscal consolidation to achieve fiscal sustainability and avoid premature access to the Eurobond. Meanwhile, the president, during his media encounter, gave an indication that he's not in favor of an early return to the capital market and would prefer the economy goes on its way forward. Take a listen to that.
We're quite happy with the outcomes of the reforms that we have been implementing in the economy. And we have survived without going to the capital markets. We've survived without borrowing. Who could have thought some years ago that Ghana's economy could be run without going to the external market to borrow? And yet, we've survived. And so we shouldn't be in a hurry to go back to the capital market. All we've done is to reorder our expenditure and push funds to areas that are of priority. And so that's all we've done. Fiscal discipline, not spending money on wasteful, political interventions and all that. And that is already showing the successes in the market. I mean, we've gone from negative 3.4% on the primary balance to positive 1.1 as at now. And by the end of the year, we'll achieve the target. I'm sure we'll overachieve the target of positive 1.5. And so it's all about discipline in expenditure. And so for me, as the president, I would not favor a quick return to the international capital market. I think we should go like this for a while and consolidate the economy before we look at external financing.
Well, Africa's presidents at the 80th United Nations General Assembly are taking a tougher line, seeking a stronger role in global governance, peace and sustainable development, and a fairer world order. Front and center are the long-standing demand for a permanent African seat on the UN Security Council. Leaders say the current structure is outdated and unjust. Migration, the Israel-Palestine war, and global inequality are also dominating Africa's agenda. But while some are impressed by the continent's new boldness, others are asking what's really fueling this seeming sudden energy. Well, former U.S. President Donald Trump addressing U.S. presidents addressing the General Assembly some days ago, slammed the Biden administration for his words, letting alien and mentally deranged person into America. But instead of echoing the negatives, Ghana's President John Mahama highlighted the contributions of migrants, insisting they strengthen communities in the U.S. and in Europe.
Frankly, it is not a mystery that when leaders of Western nations complain of their migration problems, they are often referring to immigrants from the global south. When we speak of migrants, we speak of Mami Ewusi Mensah Frimpong, a judge on the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. She is the first black female judge on any of California's 4 federal district courts. She was born here in America to immigrant parents from Ghana. We speak of Peter Bosman, a medical doctor in Ghana who moved to the town of Piran in Slovenia in the 1980s and later became the first black mayor of Piran, the first black mayor in Slovenia and in the whole of Eastern Europe. We speak of T. Michael, the iconic Ghanaian Norwegian artist and designer. And of course, we speak of the late Kofi Annan, former United Nations Secretary General. Former United Nations Secretary General and Nobel Peace Prize recipient, who was born in Ghana but spent his adulthood in various places in America and Europe. These are people who have brought great distinction to the countries that they decided to call home. Just as the migrants and the children of migrants before them did, I dare say these are not invaders. These are not criminals.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa went even further, calling in blunt terms for an end to Israel's war in Gaza.
Therefore, as nations that have pledged to uphold the UN Charter, we have the ultimate responsibility to ensure and protect the rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination, consistent with the case that South Africa brought before the International Court of Justice. There is growing global consensus. There is growing global consensus that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Just last week, the United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry found that Israel is responsible for the commission of genocide in Gaza. As Palestinians continue to face genocide and famine, we have a duty to act. South Africa has acted in the interest of saving lives by insisting that the International Court of Justice should make a ruling that indeed genocide is being committed in Gaza and that it should stop. And we stand here to say it must stop.
And Kenya's President William Ruto pressed hard for Africa to finally take its place as a permanent member of the UN Security Council.
Excellencies, as we mark the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, Africa also marks 20 years since the Ezulwini Consensus and the 60th Declaration, the two historic milestones that establishes the common African position on UN Security Council reforms. For 2 decades, Africa has spoken in one voice, demanding justice, equity, and representation in the highest organ of global governance. This demand, however, continues to be ignored, deferred, or endlessly debated to the detriment of both Africa and the legitimacy of the United Nations itself. You cannot claim to be the United Nations while disregarding the voice of 54 nations. It is not possible. Africa is no longer willing to wait on the margins of global governance while decisions about peace, security, and development are made without our understanding, without our perspectives, and without our voice. Africa's exclusion is not only unacceptable, unfair, and grossly unjust, it also undermines the very credibility of the United Nations, this organization. Africa dominates most of the Security Council agenda, provides some of the largest contingents of UN peacekeeping forces, and bears the heaviest costs of instability. Yet we remain the only continent without a permanent seat at the main table.
Joining us now is an international relations expert at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, Professor Daniel Dramani Kipo-Sunyezi. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Prof. So in your assessment, what What has really triggered the bold and assertive tone from African leaders at this very 80th UN General Assembly? Kindly unmute if you can hear me. Prof, we'll try again if you can hear me.
Hello.
Perfect. Thank you. If you heard my question, we're just wondering, what in your assessment, what has triggered the bold and very assertive tone from African leaders at this 80th UN General Assembly? Everyone seems to be speaking some truth with some power.
Yeah, I think this is the most appropriate time. Is the call for the reform of the United Nations Security Council is long overdue. And as His Excellency President of Kenya rightly put it, Africa is the biggest in terms of numbers, 54 member states, 54 member states in terms of numbers, and Africa has not had the chance to be represented. Possibly at the time of formation in 1945, they might say we were not many, but a lot of change has come. And so that is why all these African leaders are very systematic, are calling for the reform of the UN Security Council. Just look at that. That is the only continent that is not represented. At least one veto seat should be given to Africa so that Africa could have a say on matters of global security. Because if you go into the UN Security Council, Africa can always come out with resolution, Africa can support agenda, Africa can do all these things. But the binding power, we are left out. And I think that call is timely, it's appropriate, and it is high time that there should be a reform of the Security Council with a slot for Africa. That's right.
I was just wondering what is really the gatekeeping with that particular representation, but let's explore this, Prof. To what extent has the rise of China and maybe Russia as alternative power centers in terms of development, aid and investment emboldened African international posture as displayed at the Assembly?
Yeah, if you look at even China, you realize that even the veto was not with China. It was held by Taiwan and outside before it was reverted to the mainland China. So that's clearly, that is why, because the rest was to reckon and not Taiwan. And that is how China, the mainland China, took that veto. And the reality has come that Africa have a say. And the veto is very, very important. Because whatever decision that you take, if a veto member say no, that is it. Just a few days ago, the ceasefire resolution that was put by the Security Council, all the 40 members voted, but just U.S. veto, turn it down. And that is it.
Well, do you
India will also be making by Asia.
Well, Prof, do you sense at least that, well, Africa is probably thinking, I'm not getting anything from this other side. China is offering me some really good credit scores and all of that. I'm getting some benefits from that side. And so what do I lose if I speak against you? Do you get that sense from African leaders?
Yeah, I get that sense. But it's also still possible that we too will not just be. And if you look at the African Union, our agenda by 2063, they are perceiving that Africa must be a global force. We should be able to stand on ourselves and come out with an agenda that will set at the global level and not on the taking side or aligning to this China, America, and Europe and or EU. Africa must be a global force. And this slot that we are seeking is part of that movement so that we can have a say. Africa must not be a passive actor, but an active actor. Because it is a continent that has the numbers, we have the human resource, we have the natural resources, and financially, I'm sure it's a matter of time. Africa will get into the financial and we will be able to see more.
Prof, thank you so much.
Once that is done, but we need this decision or else move on to move African agenda and Africa becoming a force at a global level. It's very, very important.
Right. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us today on the news. Watching News Today, time now for World Today. Some 260 suspected cyber scammers have been arrested in citing Operation operation carried out across 14 African countries. The operation, co-coordinated by Interpol and funded by the UK, targeted criminal networks using social media and digital platforms to extract money from victims in romance scams and in so-called sextortion, in which victims are blackmailed using explicit imagery. More than 1,400 victims across Ghana, Kenya, Angola, and elsewhere were identified. Interpol estimates the victims lost a combined total of almost $2.8 million during the crackdown, which was carried out between July and in August. Police identified IP addresses, digital infrastructure, domains, and social media profiles linked to members of their scam syndicates. According to Interpol, these leads and the subsequent arrest also resulted in seizure of USB drive, SIM cards, and forged documents, as well as the taking down of 81 cyber crimes groups across Africa. That's your world today. Please stay with us. There's more on the news.